Hi, today I thought it would just be really useful just to go through some basic common mistakes, just going through some of those that I sometimes come across in lessons, just so you can try to avoid making some of these mistakes early on. I'm not saying that they're really bad mistakes to make, but I hear them more often than I perhaps expect. That's harsh for me to say, because obviously I can't remember what it was like to learn English, but I'm just going to talk about a few of these in quite a relaxed way, and hopefully you can gain something from it. So number one, I actually hear some mistakes when people talk about how old they are. And so sometimes I hear them saying, I'm 25 years, for example. We can't say 25 years. We can say, I'm 25, I'm 25, if you want to sound more British. Or you can say, I'm 25 years old, I'm 25 years old. Unfortunately, you can't go down the middle. You can't go like in between them, and you can't say I'm 25 years. If you're talking about years, then you can say how many years something has happened for, how long it's been there. This building has been there for 30 years. This building is 30 years old. So that's how to use years and years old. Linked to that, there's also sometimes some confusion between when we're saying I'm 25 years old and I'm a 25-year-old guy. We can't say 25 years old guy, 6 years old daughter, 90 years old grandfather. We're basically using years old, whatever the age we're talking about, we're using it as an adjective, so it's just coming before the noun. It's a way that we're describing the noun. So technically, in between the number, the word year, and then again between year and the word old, we need hyphens just to link them together to make it an adjective. The next one, sometimes I hear I am born in. Okay, we can't say I am born in somewhere. I wish we could. Born, we're actually using it as an adjective. And I can understand some confusion with verbs, especially if we're thinking about French, for example. I believe it would be said as je suis né. So there's that confusion, especially considering that it's used with the verb être in French, the verb to be. So when we're saying it in English, we do just want to say I was born in. Of course, you can also say I'm from London, I'm from Barcelona, but I was born in. The next mistake, it's one that is usually made quite early on when learning English, but it's also some kind of mistake that just keeps coming back every now and then, even when I least expect it. So it'll be something like, I like watch films. Can we say I like watch films? No, we can't. So what do we say instead? Well, we can say I like watching films, or I like to watch films, or I enjoy watching films. We have to say it like that because we're either saying I like to watch. To watch is what we call an infinitive, to plus the base form of the verb, or we're using it as an ing verb. I like watching films. Remember as well to use the plural when we're talking generally. If you're not talking about a specific film, you don't want to say, I like playing sports, I like watching films, I like listening to songs. Yeah, listening to songs isn't the most natural way to say it. You would say, I like listening to music. But we're using plurals because you're not talking about a specific thing. Think about this one as well. I like to running. I like to running. We can't say that either. Now, that mistake, there's another option. I like to run. Yeah, it's okay. It's not very unnatural, but there are some more natural options available, and they include I like running or I like to go running. We can say to go running, to go do something when we're leaving our house to do it, when it's an activity that we don't do indoors or in our homes, I should say. So we could say to go skiing, to go skateboarding, to go swimming. If we were saying I like knitting, that's absolutely fine. You can say I enjoy knitting. You could also say I like to do some knitting. So you're not really going anywhere for some knitting unless you like to do it at your friend's house. I don't know. This isn't from personal experience. I'm just giving some random examples. So you can say, when I next have some free time, I'd like to do some knitting. I would like to do some knitting. When I next have some free time, I'd like to do some cleaning. I'd like to do some songwriting. Anything like that works really well, and it's really natural. The next really big one is if I'm asking a student about where they've been to, where they've traveled to, talking about traveling in general, I often hear them saying, I went to Canada, I went to Brazil, and I went to Scotland, for example. Now, if we're talking about a specific period of time, I went to Spain in 2017, of course that's fine. But usually I structure the question so that it's not talking about a specific time. I'm talking about any time in the past. And when we're talking about a non-specific time in the past, we need to use I've been to. That's called the present perfect tense. You don't necessarily need to know that, but I may refer to that in the future. That means that we'd have to say, I've been to Canada, I've been to Portugal, I've been to China, but I haven't been to Japan yet, and I'd really like to go. Another little mistake that I've heard occasionally is saying something like, when I have a small free time. Okay, free time can't be small. You can have a small amount of free time, or you can have a little free time. Free time, or just time in general, is going to be what we call an uncountable noun. It's something we can't count. You could say with time, you can count it. Okay, 24 hours in the day, we can count it. But the noun time is uncountable. I'll give you some more examples of uncountable nouns. It includes rice, money, and love. With all of those, we have to use little or a lot of. So that means we would have to say, when I have a little free time, or when I have a small amount of free time. I've just reminded myself of another mistake I hear sometimes. So when we're talking about things like time, money, rice, these uncountable nouns, you shouldn't say, I have much time, I have much rice, I have much love. We shouldn't say those things. We can't use much there. We use much in the negative form. I don't have much money. I don't have much time left, and so on. If you need to use it in the positive form, so you need to say what you have, not what you don't have, then we can use a lot of. That's the most natural option. I have a lot of money. I have a load of money. That's definitely not true, but again, just random examples. I also hear some mistakes, including verbs do, have, make, take, get. I hear those a lot, of course, especially when students experiment with phrasal verbs. Totally understand that. It's extremely confusing and there are so many possibilities. I will talk more about phrasal verbs in the future, but just for now, some common mistakes that include those verbs include when students say to do a mistake, to do mistakes. We don't want to use do, we want to use make. So you make a mistake, or you do something wrong. Also, to make a photo, we don't make a photo. You can make a picture, you can make a drawing, technically, but you're taking a photo. So remember to use the verb take there. Also, sometimes I hear students talking about going somewhere to take a coffee. If we're taking a coffee, it implies that we're actually kind of making it at home, putting it in a little disposable cup, and we're taking it to a cafe. I think the cafe might think that's a little bit rude if you're just going there to drink your own coffee. So actually, instead of to take a coffee, we want to use get. We stopped somewhere to get a coffee, or more informally, to grab a coffee. We stopped at a cafe to grab a coffee. A mistake I hear when students are telling me that they have an exam coming up, they're preparing for an exam, like an IELTS exam, most commonly. There is some confusion between taking the exam and passing the exam. If we pass the exam, that means to succeed in it, that means to not fail. So when we're talking about the day when we are going to do the exam, we're going to use the verb take. When are you going to take the exam? When do you have to take the exam? And then I passed the exam. I passed, I got a good grade, I got a good score. I don't have to take the exam again. And in the end, no, finally, I need to mention this confusion. In the end and finally, what's the difference? Okay, this is one I've heard quite a lot. If we're using the phrase in the end, we're talking about the result, the conclusion of something after some uncertainty about what's going to happen. Kind of linking this idea and reflecting on the last point I made. If we're talking about an exam, an IELTS exam, I could say something like, I only got a 6 in my IELTS exam, but in the end, the university I applied for only required a 6. So, all good. I'm not saying that 6 is a bad score. I'm just pretending that I'm applying for Cambridge or Oxford. If we're using finally, then it means that it's something which happened later than expected, maybe after a long time of waiting. For example, the trainers I ordered in November have finally arrived in March. Maybe you didn't expect your trainers to take 4 months to arrive, so that's definitely a reason to use the word finally. Okay, they're all the mistakes I'm going to mention today, but if you like this style of video, then please let me know, and I'll have plenty of common mistakes to mention in the future. If you already knew everything I mentioned in this video, then to be honest, I'm proud of you. Hopefully my explanations were beneficial and you found them interesting anyway. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya.